We're going to call the informational meeting of the Romeo Downtown Development Authority to order for Monday, December 7th, and it's 6:30. Lisa, can you do a roll call, please?
Yes. Poznansky? Brandt?
Yep.
Rose?
Here.
Tar?
Yes. Yes.
Humphreys? Parker? Malzahn?
Here.
Stevens? Stevens?
Here.
Hayes?
Okay.
Okay.
Can I get an approval of the agenda for tonight's meeting, please?
I'll make the motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
All right. We have to do a roll call motion on that. So Malzahn?
Yes.
Brandt?
Yes.
Tar?
Yes.
Rose?
Yes.
Stevens?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, Lisa, do you want to run through the presentations then for tonight?
Yeah, I can run through it real quick. It's pretty base. It's basically the same thing that we did just a couple of months ago. Hopefully next year we can get them spread out a little more so that we maybe have one in June and maybe one in October.
Yeah, I was asking that. Do you typically run them so close together?
No.
Okay.
No. And I think the reason was ran so close to, well, I mean, obviously COVID really, messed things up.
Mm-hmm.
Our DDA purpose has stayed exactly the same. The goals of the authority have stayed the same as they were in the October meeting. The only thing I really updated in the projects for 2021 was that the crosswalk project that we did sign the revenue sharing agreement with the village if the grant is awarded. So that's really the only thing that I changed in the projects for 2021. Obviously, in January, we need to start the update of the DDA development plan. Again, I've been in contact with the county, and they are going to help us with that. There is a fee cost to that, but the county will be, I feel like they would probably be the best to help us do it and get it done and at the most reasonable cost. I mean, obviously, we can talk with the village planner and ask if he's got any ideas or suggestions. And, I think, once we get that done, it'll help a lot. We've got to have that done before June. And when I talked with Jeff Schrader at the county, that wouldn't be a problem at all. So,
Question on the revenue sharing project with the upgrading of the LED light. Can you give just an overview of that and where we are on that?
I think Christine's got more information on that than I've got.
I reached out to our representative, I think Brandon is his name, Farron from DTE, and he said that we are definitely on the schedule for spring of 21. He is having his auditors come and do an audit of all the village lamp posts, again, to make sure they have the right count, and then give us a final estimate of what it would cost in realistic 2021 budget numbers. And so he anticipates getting that to me January, February, and then with approval, it should be done, he thought, by spring, summer at the latest. And I said, I need the project to be done by end of fiscal year, so June 30th. And he said he didn't see that as a problem. So that's sort of where I left it. And if I don't hear from him by mid-January, I'll reach out to him again.
So what the entailing of that is switching out the light bulbs in those lampposts? Is that what this is?
Correct. We couldn't afford to do the replacement of all of the lamp posts because that would have been several $100,000.
Right.
But as an option, we can convert all of our fixtures to an LED. It's not just the bulb, it's the actual fixture itself.
Okay.
The component inside of it. So they'll all be LED functioning lights.
Okay.
And that, I believe the project was estimated about $82,000 or $85,000. Again, I'll wait for him to get me those 2021 figures, but that's where we're at with the overall cost.
I
Not
know
just the
this has been
DDA
on-
as a split.
I'm just curious why it took so long for this. I know it's been talked about for a while. Is it on DTE's side getting out here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
COVID put a big hurt on any contractor.
Okay.
Coming out and doing that. And then we really weren't in a big hurry once we passed the budget. Once I got the approval from the budget passing and reached out to him, he said, well, our work crews are already booked for 20.
Okay.
So he would look for it to be next year.
Okay. I appreciate it. I just wanted to get my head wrapped around exactly what was going on with that. Okay.
Christine,
Christine,
can I
are
ask a
these-
question regarding the lights?
Uh-huh.
We've got the 4 posts that I sent you guys the email about that the plugs don't work on. Do you think that's something the DTE can fix while they're there too, or?
That's not a DTE function. It's Rawhorn Electric that does that. And I sent the work order in today for
Okay.
that. So they will
Okay.
look at it. Some of them were not repairable.
Okay.
But I'm not sure which ones weren't with the 4 that you listed, but I
Right.
did send those on to Tim Metz, and he was going to reach out to Rawhorn to have them come and see if they could fix those.
Isn't the one that's in the park a DTE light pole though? There's the one that would be the closest to Starkweather Alley, right by the rock.
They're all DTE lamp poles, but
Mhm.
Rawhorn works the electrical plug on them.
Okay.
So if it's the light that's out, that's a DTE fix. If it's the electrical plug, that's a Rawhorn thing.
Okay.
If
Okay.
that makes sense. Yep.
That makes sense. Makes perfect sense.
So Christine, the lights that they're doing, are they not just on Main Street? They're all in the DDA then that they're redoing the bulbs and fixtures on?
It would be within the central business district, right? They're not doing
Okay.
the ones that are outside in the residential areas, just in the downtown, which is pretty much the
Okay.
DDA district. Yes.
Yeah, okay. I was just thinking it was just Main Street, but okay, I got you. I have a question that if on this 2021 projects list, can you all hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So first question I have, 2 of them really. One is, are we going to schedule and plan some sort of significant, realistic orientation time where, some of you have been involved pretty deeply in these things for a long time, and Kelly poses just a real good basic question on kind of getting background. So I'm wondering if there's a time where we can have that strategy session and sort of new person orientation, and where we can really spend a couple hours going through a bit of history, a bit of what the future holds, and kind of more of really what is our objective more as a board, given kind of your guidance, Christina. I mean, I think, and then the second part of that is then when can we start talking about, significant next projects? Like, if we can pull out this crosswalk thing, I think that's a significant win for the village, for safety, for aesthetics, for businesses, to slow traffic, to just make it more walkable all the way around. I think like these things on the list here, these are fine and all, but when we look at holiday decorations and these types of things, I think we got to think about what's phase 2. And something comes to mind to me is looking at that whole quadrant behind, the hardware store, making it look as neat and tidy as what we have behind, say, the office pub area. Or something to that magnitude where we really start thinking, bigger projects here of what we're going to do and how we can approach these building owners, the business owners, and look for a 20-year funding option for something like that, where maybe we go out there and find the money through whatever source, and then they're paying it back through a tax assessment along the way, or something like that. I just would like to, if we're going to spend the next 12 months in these meetings, I'd like to look back in a year from now, and again, if we can hang our hats on this crosswalk, that's significant. My question is, what's the next big thing? And it doesn't have to be that quadrant, but there's got to be something out there that really needs the DDA's attention and push to make it happen.
If I could interject, what we do with the board for the chamber is we hold a board retreat in January, exactly doing what Greg is indicating, where we lay the groundwork for what our goals are for the organization, both with the board and the events and our finances and the whole gamut. This crosswalk project, if I remembered correctly, would not come up to be worked on until 2022. Is that correct, Christine?
Or 2023.
Okay.
Right? We would start the engineering and the drawing. It would get, bid out for the contractor. All that sort of stuff would be in 2022, but the actual, work would not be done until 2023.
Okay. So to Greg's point, possibly there is something that the DDA could look towards, having a goal of getting something done before the next one starts in 2023. If there's a way to finance it or a way to talk through financing it, I think that's something we should probably sit down and have a goals, objectives meeting or board retreat, whatever you want to call it. And Lisa is working on new board member manuals because, as Greg said, there's myself, him, we have John Rose. We're coming on the board without any really, I took the chair position without any really guidelines as to what is entailed in this job. So I think it's important going forward that we have paperwork out there to give new board members, to show them what their responsibilities are to this board.
So thank you, Kelly. So I agree with that. So when I think of the project, so if we got one in the pipeline right now, if we get approved for this grant, which I'd like to hear a quick update on that in a moment, but if there is one. But the point is, that's in the pipeline. There's really nothing that we can do now to affect it. We don't have to meet on it. We don't have to talk about it. It's happening and it's flowing through. So the next question is, do we start one, get going, that maybe could even be taking place simultaneously? Maybe it will take us 2 years to figure out this whole parking and restructuring and cleaning up that back quadrant. Or maybe, maybe we can get it done next year. Maybe, do we, can we get some help getting all these business owners together sometime, first thing in the spring when the weather clears a little bit, it's a little bit more reasonable to get out there and move around. Do we plan something, March 20th, where we know we're getting everybody's back from Florida, whatever it is, and we get a serious invite out to these folks and host them into, one of the local downtown buildings, if it's the River God or if it's upstairs at Younger's or wherever there's a bunch of room where 50 people can get together. I would be for that. I think we need to get these people, on board where we hear from them and they understand what we're doing and how we're here to help them and get a chance to give them a bit of a say in what they think could be beneficial for them as, significant landowners in the DDA. So with that said, I guess I'd just like to really eventually here, let's pick something. Let's pick a direction. We all agree on it, or most of us agree on it. We're not going to get unanimous on these things, but we can begin moving towards something. One last point. When I look at the objective or the DDA purpose, and it says, encourage historic preservation. And again, this is no dig on the Ace Hardware. I think they're fantastic. They do a nice business in there and they're a great asset. But to my point that I made before is, nobody talked to them about the facade. Nobody talked to them from the DDA. From what I understand, that's the type of stuff I'd like to try to have us be ahead of, not as an authority, not as someone who can enforce the codes or jam something down someone's throats, but someone who can walk along with them and encourage them and guide them and give them maybe some other ways of looking at things. If we're truly going to try to preserve the historic preservation, we can do decoration, do all this stuff, but if we end up with a bunch of facades and things going on that just don't really work for a historic downtown, then it's all for naught anyway. So I'll leave it at that. Those were just some thoughts I had. So I'm game for a strategy session. Anytime we get one on the books, and I've got all kinds of thoughts that I'd like to see if we can get in the pipeline.
My suggestion is really for Lisa to still make contact with the county to find out who do they have that can assist in that development plan, the TIF plan. And I think that they may be able to help the board focus, cohesively on the best practices of what you actually should be looking at and considering. And I think at the same time, if we can get their input and get a meeting on the books, just our board in a retreat style, like you suggested, Kelly, you can talk about the development plan and also about your goals and objectives. You kick some things around, compare it to your budget or your funding options, and then really sort of, move it forward. Because it's not just about, holiday lighting decorations and the flowers that we're going to plant next summer, right? There's some significant bricks and mortar projects that this board, is capable of doing. And it may not happen, in the time frame of which we want, which, would be tomorrow if we could, get rid of all the dumpsters and build a couple of corrals. But we have to start somewhere. And making a plan is at least a good starting point. So.
Yeah,
I agree.
Well, I will say I'm supposed to get a hold of Jeff Schrader right after the first of the year. So when I get in contact with him and we can figure out, maybe we'll have a better idea of when we can have an actual in-person meeting, or if we can do something with Zoom with them and try and figure it all out. I will email everybody and let everybody know. And we can set up.
And Lisa, I'm gonna push and promote for in person. These are just not as productive. Not everybody. Most people are going to Home Depot. Most people are living life, being careful, doing the right thing. So if we can find the right size, facility where we can move around and do our social distancing or whatever has to happen, I would encourage that. I'm more of a fan for that, for whatever it's worth. And Lisa, what would it take you working with maybe some folks in the village to round up a list of these building owners in the DDA to start developing a mailing list where we could communicate directly with them on, like for instance, this crosswalk thing? I think that's a great thing to keep them updated on, let them know what we're doing, let them know what's going on. I think getting out a regular communication to them is the right thing. They're huge taxpayers in the village. They pay the taxes on these bricks and mortars, and that's what we should be doing. So can you, Christine, how hard would it be to get like a list of the building owners and addresses where we could start doing a mailing to them to communicate stuff with them, and then potentially invite them in early spring, for a visit?
Right. It's not difficult because that's how we sent them all notices of the meeting we had for public hearing on those pedestrian crossings, right? We sent everybody a letter within the certain, area inviting them. Unfortunately, no one, chose to attend. So, but that doesn't mean we can't, try again, and we should try again.
Right.
So yes, out of BS&A, those sorts of reports can be generated.
Okay. My thought is, how is it we can, not today, not tomorrow, but how can we begin developing, in a sense, almost like a sense of pride that they actually want to see, that there's in a sense like a competition, like, hey, I don't want my place to look bad because everybody else is doing such great things with their building, and whatnot. I think if people can start seeing that there's some movement on stuff, and a perfect example, I think, is the west side of the main street there. You know, the back of those buildings compared to the back of the buildings on the other side. And I think when that parking lot got all jazzed up, and maybe you guys would remember better than me, but it seems to me that's, that really brought that along and encouraged, Glenn and the office pub to, get an entry back there, and then that upper deck, over by the dance studio, or I think it looks a lot more neat and tidy than we have on the other side. So I think if we can show them that we're making efforts and doing things, I think the kind of the rising tides brings all boats up, so to speak.
I think, unfortunately, Greg, you got to make sure that you compare apples to apples. The southwest quadrant behind Younger's, that's a municipal owned lot, right? So we had the latitude to do what we needed to get done. Unfortunately,
Right.
on the southeast quadrant, most of that is privately owned, with the exception of those 2 rows that are between Zaco and, I guess, then the alleyway where the private parking, and that's the area that, if it was all common area, all municipal owned, you would have a lot more latitude. But getting buy-in from all of those business owners to say, for the good of everybody, yeah, I'm willing to pay, X amount of dollars to do this. That's the challenge.
Well, and the other question is, and I'm not suggesting this, but just as an idea, do we go to them with a real win-win plan where we say, hey, look, if you're willing to forfeit your back parking lot, and we can create this very nice streetscape parking lot over here, it only increases the value of their buildings, potentially lowering their taxes because they've given up something, but then they've got now maybe a higher value building. I think the right economic development folks can kind of put together maybe 3 options. Like, hey, one, we just live with the way it is, and everybody throws asphalt in holes and hope that it looks good for the next 30 years. And it looks like a third world country. Or 2, we're gonna ask for, we've come up with $500,000 or whatever it is, and it's gonna cost every building owner this amount over the next 20 years. But you hold your property, it's yours, et cetera, et cetera. Or 3, we got an option where you can, sign off, your rights to this area, and this is what we will do then. When we receive the property, we will make this look like this and present them with a nice, architectural drawing of where we'd like to take it if we have, we have the rights to the property, so to speak. So I'm not a city planner. I don't have skills in that, but I just know, if we have the right leadership and we're showing people that we're serious about what we're doing, and we can show them, hey, we got city, sidewalks or city crosswalks going in. We've got this, we got this, we got this. This is the area we want to improve on. I think we got to bring them something, at least try. And then if we don't get it, then we can all look at it in 6 years and say, well, we tried. This is why it still looks like garbage, because we can't move these people in a direction. But we have to try, I think.
Well, that can be part of our board retreat goals. When Lisa gets Jeff Schrader in here to talk to us, there can be a subcommittee that is in charge of that.
Agreed. Yep.
So, and I know Jason Arnett tried something like this years ago, and it never got funding or went any farther than his drawings, I believe. So it's something to put on the charts for 2021 and push it forward and see where we can go with it. Okay, Lisa, I guess the last page was the successes, our past successes.
Yeah, and I mean, the only thing I added on there was we purchased the first display of the Christmas lights, and the trees are on the buildings and the bows are on the lampposts, and that's Other than that, everything is pretty much the same. Like I said, we're gonna be doing that, the project with the DIA, but that's not really anything. That's something that the DIA is bringing to us and, has asked us to participate in. So, but it's something that will bring people to town. So
The banners that are on the poles right now, was that privately done, Christine?
Yeah, well, there was a few sponsors that are on the bottom of that. Yep.
Oh, okay. Well, I know it was the Mitt. That's
Right. The Mitt, Jennifer Andery. I did all the graphics work
Okay.
on it, and just did them for a wholesale cost at the print shop. Who else? There's one other sponsor on there.
Was it Heidelberg?
No, it wasn't any of the cars.
Okay.
I'm drawing a blank.
Well, they look nice.
Yes.
I just was not aware that we were getting banners up with the Christmas decorations.
Yeah, just there was nothing hanging there, and then the Mitt TV brought that project and wanted to know, if they got the banners done and printed, could we do this as an interim? And we checked with Amy All, who said nope, they weren't really putting up the Christmas banners this year, and so go for it. So
Okay.
we had them done and installed.
If I can bring up one more thing, and I talked to you about this a little bit before, Christine, through some text. There's been some people who brought this idea to my attention. I think it's a good one, and I think it should be at least researched and perhaps thought about a bit more, is a land swap between where the Village Park is and where the old, Romeo Junior High is, and at least getting a portion of that maybe for a Village Park, and then consider the Village Park. And I know this sends probably daggers through a lot of people's skin as I say this, but if this could be turned into a nice municipal parking lot area, and then the Village Park be transplanted up to where the junior high is being torn down, this might be our one opportunity to get a little bit of and I know that's not the DDA up there, but working together with the Village folks and the, whatever, I think it's something that should at least be discussed and considered, because this could be an opportunity to change that whole quadrant back there for those building owners, especially if that restaurant's going in up at Locks or something. I don't know what's going on there exactly, but I'd heard that a restaurant or something, if that's still happening, parking is always important. If you look at how Art and Jake struggles for parking there, and lots of businesses struggle. Parking can kill businesses. So as a Village guy, I don't see any problem with that, surrendering that park and moving stuff up there, the rock, the monuments, the whatever else, and let it be the park the next 150 years until somebody comes up with another idea. But that's just my thoughts.
Okay, thanks for the input, Greg. I guess part of that is to do with the school district too.
Yeah, well, I've had some informal communications with Robinson on it. Yeah, and he's not. No one's approached him on it. Christine, I text a little bit back and forth, but I know, Christine, I know you're busy. You got a million things to do. But if that's something that you'd like to explore, I'm glad to talk with Todd and at least find out, hey, is there a section of that property? Can we buy half of it? Can we, what would it cost and what would be involved? And maybe they'd say, hey, we can do a deal. And then the Village folks would have to decide, the town, all the trustees, however we all do that, say, yeah, let's do a land swap. We'll just move it up there, and then you could also offer those sections of parking lot even potentially, for sale for business owners behind there, saying, hey, we're going to be able to add 15 or 50 parking spaces back here, and we can allocate them amongst these addresses. And this is what the buy-in is. I think, wasn't Bill Parker talking about like cost per parking space with buildings before when we were talking about that place behind the Four Corners restaurant and the guy that wanted to rip down the couple houses there?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there's some value to those parking spaces then. So anyway, I'd like to make that discussion happen sooner than later, but I'm not in a position to go and do that. So Christina, if you want to call me back sometime and further that, or we just forget it and move on, but I think it's a good opportunity to at least look at.
I have had some conversations with Todd Robinson about that. And personally, and from a village leadership, I'm not in support of that idea, although I appreciate you, talking about it and throwing it out there. If somebody else wanted to take that on and tackle it, certainly, some negotiations could be done. That's not where I see things moving from my perspective, but certainly we can talk about that again at the goals and objectives and weigh the pros and cons of it. I think there's a far greater benefit to the residents and the businesses to have a recreational space within walking distance to our central business district. No one is going to grab a cup of coffee from Main Street or carry out from Rustic Bluebird and walk up to a new park by where the middle school building is to have lunch.
Well, and I agree with that. I wouldn't debate that. I just don't know if it outweighs having 50 nice parking places back there for Rustic Bluebird and the new restaurant and whatever, the wine place and all those. I don't know that.
It is a give and a take.
So,
yep. I get you.
But it's also a conversation we could probably have with a subcommittee or our goals and objectives too.
Yep.
Okay, so we've gone through the informational section of this meeting. Do I have any other board members that would like to make comment?
I do have a question that I was asked, and I do not have an answer for, part of it being my newness to this. Tonight's meeting, I was told there was some confusion because there was canceled, yet there was a meeting. So I didn't know how to answer the difference, I guess, in the meetings and the normal meetings. Some people are allowed to attend, and they didn't know if they were allowed to for this one or exactly what the difference was. And like I said, I didn't have an answer. I don't know myself.
John, this informational meeting is a mandate set by the state of Michigan in which we have to invite the people that we partner with for the DDA, which would be the Washington Township officials and Bruce Township officials. That is who is invited to this meeting. The real DDA board meeting that was to be held right after this, there were no agenda items and anybody could attend that one. So that's why that meeting had been canceled.
Kelly, anyone can attend this meeting also. It is a public meeting.
Oh, you did have it posted. That's right.
Right, it is posted as a public meeting and anyone can attend.
Okay, I get you. I guess they just didn't know if it was posted or not. So it was posted and
Yes.
they were allowed.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yep.
Do I have anybody else want to make a comment? Then I would ask that somebody make a motion to adjourn this informational meeting tonight.
I'll make that motion.
I'll make the motion.
And wish everybody a very Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And hopefully in January, we can all meet in person again.
Yes.
Yes.
Keep our fingers crossed, right?
Yes.
Do we have
I
a
got my
second?
hospital board people saying not until April.
Do we need a second on this motion?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we got to do a roll call. So Mel,
Yes.
Rose,
Yes.
Brandt,
Yes.
Carr,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
motion carries. Meeting is adjourned.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Christmas, everybody.
Thank you.